So, lads, it looks like Declan Rice is going to be off in the summer, and there's been a few rumours already about who could potentially come in to replace Rice. But there is a question: do we actually have the replacement at West Ham? Yes, of course, we are talking about Flynn Downs. And yeah, people have been, really excited by some of the performances he's put in this season, and especially in the Europa Conference League. And we just haven't seen it in the Premier League yet. But with Rice going, could that potentially create that path for him to become a regular at West Ham and maybe fill that void that Rice is going to leave? And it saves us spending some more money in the transfer window.
I'll go first. Could it give him an avenue into the first team? Absolutely. Should it give him the avenue into the first team? I don't think so. I think when we talk about Declan Rice and we're talking about replacing Declan Rice, I think sometimes we get lost in this idea that it's a West Ham boy that's going to come in to replace him. It's given everyone their noble back. But if truth be told, we're on about replacing a very decent player who we've not seen enough of, replacing a world-class player. And whilst I think Flynn Downs will run through brick walls because it's the club that he supports, much like Noble, the drop in quality is quite substantial. Flynn Downs is a very good player, has a lot of time to develop. But some of the conversations also seem to be talking around like he's a young kid, still looking to develop, still looking to grow, when in actual fact, he's a year older than Declan Rice. So I think if we're being really brutal, we take away any kind of claret and blue tinted spectacles and like of Flynn Downs, because he's a very likable guy and, again, a likable player because of the way he gets around, the way he plays. I think you have to then say, he's not necessarily the level of other players that are younger than him who we are going to have the money to go and replace for him. And, when I look at Downs, I think of three options that we could look at constantly that I would probably look as a more viable option. One of them is obviously Kepren Thuram, who's probably out of our reach now with Liverpool. Looking at him, Manu Kone at BMG has been a fantastic player for them. And the wild card, and he's a young player, Alex Scott, who has untold potential, but can do everything in midfield, which is something that we've got in Declan Rice. It's not the same physically, but he has a lot of bite in the tackle, much like, say, Downs, but his ceiling level is much higher. So when I kind of look at it, I go, he has an avenue into the team, but I don't think it's via the route of replacing Declan Rice, in my personal opinion.
I think the thing with Flynn Downs that people are kind of getting excited by is, he's putting in really good performances, and we still haven't seen him yet in that natural position playing as a six, really. And, when we talk about a Rice replacement, you mentioned there, Mike, that Downs isn't going to be on the level of Rice. Well, no one's going to be on the level of Rice, really, that we bring in. I would, argue for what we're going to get. Are we going to be able to replace Rice and, bring someone in with the same quality, if not better quality than Rice? No.
But then again, who's to say that we're not going to get ownership in the summer that's going to actually go all out and utilise Rice money to go and get someone and can sell a dream to a top young talent? Again, getting the level of Declan Rice is going to be hard, but getting the notch below Declan Rice shouldn't be out of reach, especially if we can get Europe this year.
Could that not be Downs?
No. I feel that sometimes when we look at Downs, it's because we go, well, we're West Ham, we should be give this young lad a go. But he's not a young lad, really. And I think if we want to be that top team, you sell a world-class player. Granted, we are not going to go and get a world-class player. There's no level of delusion in my mind that we're going to go get like the next Tuchemeni, for instance, or the next Declan Rice. But there is by no means why we can't go get, say, a Manu Kone, who is on the edge of being in a top six team, Kepren Thuram, and selling those ideas to those young players that are just as good as, say, Declan Rice was at his age, who have the potential to be players. And that's what we've got to remember. Those two players in particular are 21 and 22 respectively. So again, they've got 3 years on Downs. They've also been playing at Ligue 1 in Europa League and obviously in Bundesliga respectively. So again, they've been playing at high levels for longer, and their ceiling level is higher. So it's no disrespect to Downs. It's just the harsh reality of football. And if we go down the route of, yeah, but, can we get the same level as Rice? No. But that shouldn't then mean that we instantly go, well, let's just go to Downs, because we've got to be brutal and we've got to assess the market as it is. And we've got to also show some ambition. You can't go from Declan Rice and then not look to replace him with a player of a high quality, because all it says to everyone else is we've given up in terms of trying to be that big team. It was just a bit of talk for a while. And I'm not, again, saying that he shouldn't be in the team. I just don't think his avenue is the Rice replacement. I think, personally, he's someone who comes in to replace Souček when we play in a midfield three. That's where I feel his level is. But I'm going to stop and give you guys a chance.
Yeah, Sloth, what do you think about it? Because, obviously, it's going to be very difficult to replace Rice. With whoever we look at, it's going to be very, very difficult to replace what he brings to West Ham. When you look at Downs, like you just mentioned, it could be that Downs is going to be someone to partner a new midfielder in the summer. Is that the best way for Downs to play? He shouldn't be the exact replacement for Rice, but there should be some way of getting him into that, starting 11 next season.
No. And it's nothing against Downs. It's just he's older than Rice, and you've got to question. I'm going to ask you a question as well, because it's gone from my memory a little bit here. But who gave Rice his debut?
Bilic,
yeah.
Bilic. And how did he get on under Moyes?
He played in a back three on the right side under next to Zabaleta, but he was kind of in and out of the team. He played mainly because of injuries.
And where did he play under Pellegrini?
Centre midfield. Well, defensive midfield.
Now, I'm going to put it to you, the only reason we're seeing the Declan Rice that we're seeing today is because Pellegrini moved him into that position. I don't think if Moyes had stayed on, we'd have seen him nearly as much as we have done. It's nothing against Moyes, but this is just how he handles young players. Young players coming through do not get the chance under Moyes that so many people seem to think that they do. They just don't. And when we're looking at replacements for Rice, Downs is older, but he's not nearly the level of quality. So I think the key thing is finding players who are going to develop, but under a manager who is going to play them. Now, this manager, if we're talking about Downs as a great player who's put in performances that deserve to start, then why is Souček playing? Because Souček has been very poor in comparison to how he was when he came. And whoever is in that midfield should warrant to compete with Souček.
I think most people are saying that Downs should be playing ahead of Souček, to be fair.
But the key man who makes the decisions isn't seeing that. Now, for me, I think if he was near good enough to replace Rice, we'd have seen a lot more of him. Because let's face it, if you have a player of Declan Rice's standing who is ready to come into the team, I don't care how much you love Thomas Souček, he's going to play over Souček. So this comes down to two main factors. Is he good enough, or is Moyes good enough to be making those decisions? Now, my opinion is no to both of those things, but regardless of that, I don't think he is of the quality to progress us and take us forward to where we are this season, which is narrowly avoiding relegation. Now, if we were talking replacements, the team rock bottom of the Premier League at the moment have a very good young player in Lavia who could potentially come in, who has played at Premier League level and has shown a lot of ability in one of the best, by coming through one of the best academies in the world, who we could look to get in the summer, who could be a long-term Rice replacement. But if we want someone like Manu Kone, if we want someone like Kefren Thuram, we have to go out there and say to them, you're going to get playing time. You're going to be one of my first names on the team sheet. And you have to develop into the next Declan Rice. This is going to be your game. You cannot just have a player in the background who you go, you're my long-term Declan Rice replacement.
Yeah.
They have to be forcing their way into your plans to make sure that the fans are comfortable with, not that the fans are comfortable, but the fans think that guy's ready. He's ready to step up. And I just don't think he's shown that level yet. If Souček is dropped and he comes in and puts in 10 out of 10 performances, he guides us away from the relegation zone. 100%. Yeah, let him have that chance. But you've still got to figure out a replacement for Souček. You've still got to figure out a key element in that midfield that has to change. And for me, it's a sign of a deeper problem at the football club that Downs just isn't the answer to.
I think the key here is that Downs isn't the direct replacement for Rice. You know, it's either we're going to go two ways. We're going to sell Rice in the summer and bring in another 6 that hopefully is, you know, one of those players that we mentioned or someone of that caliber, or we look at bringing in a 6 as bringing in Downs into the 6 position and then using that money, say, for someone to partner Downs in an 8, and whether we're playing a back 4 or back 5. If we are going to play a back 4, you look at that midfield. Fornals, he doesn't look like he's going to be playing in that midfield position under Moyes. He's been pretty much frozen out at the moment. So it then leaves, well, if Paqueta stays this summer, we're going to have Downs and Paqueta and Souček. Now, will Souček stay past this summer? Probably not, to be honest. So then we're going to sell Rice and Souček, and then you either bring in an 8 or you bring in a 6. And I would rather bring in and spend that money on an 8 than a 6, because I think Downs is good enough to play 6 for us. It's just not on Rice's level. But I'd rather bring in someone that's going to be more impactful for us, not just defensively, but offensively, because we just struggle. We struggle so much to break teams down, and we don't have someone that's capable of being an 8 for us. You know, we've seen it with Paqueta. He just hasn't played in there.
Well, I think one of the things that is interesting is you're listening to the rumours and word coming out of the club that we're looking at Disasi. We're looking at spending money in the summer on Disasi. Now, I've long gone on about him. I think he's fantastic. I think he's built like a wardrobe. He is quick. He's got so much ability, and he's young. Bringing him in with Aguerd, that is a top 4 level centre-back pairing. I don't care who you are. That is a fantastic centre-back pairing. So, but the issue is you're going to be spending a lot of money. Now, if I were to hazard a guess, I would think that Monaco would maybe sell for about £45 million, maybe 40. Now, that's a chunk of the Rice money.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at, say, 120 million for Rice, that's a third of that money gone already. Now, that's fine. You've still got 80 million to play with. I've long said that I think you probably need 2 players to replace Declan Rice. Going out getting someone like Sangare is probably another 35 million. But then you have to think, if I want a box-to-box, who am I going to get in? What am I going to do from there? And you're almost papering over a deeper crack that needs so much work towards it. I think recruitment issues at this club are really evident to see. And we mentioned Alex Scott. You know, he's a homegrown option we can get in. That's great. That gives us a bit more of a filling in that area. But if we got in someone like Lavia, who's got experience of the English league, and if you want other relegation alternatives, personally, and I know I might get peppered for this, but I think Philip Billing is a great option, especially if Bournemouth go down, because he's another big physical unit. He's much better on the ball than Thomas Souček. He gives you a threat from set pieces. And as so many people love, he's Prem proven. So you're looking at options there who are coming from Premier League clubs and going down. Now, I know people have long said that's not the mentality to have, but just look at Dawson and the impact he had with the fans. From a relegated club, knows the league, but apparently if we don't have ambition, you know, we can't be signing these kind of players. So It comes with the scouting, and I think the issue with it is not so much the player in Downs, it's the setup. it's the people around the club who just aren't really putting in the planning or aren't really giving the players a chance. Because I would say that Downs hasn't been given the chance to show his quality.
Yeah. No, he definitely hasn't. And, he's played like a handful of Premier League games and they've never been in his position. He's played right mid, attacking in that number 10 role away at Old Trafford. So, yeah, I think in terms of Downs being a direct replacement for Rice, it's a no for now, just because we haven't seen enough of him. And it's very unlikely he's going to be, on the level of Rice. It's pretty certain he's not on the level of Rice. So, it depends how we want to go forward with our strategy this summer, because we're going to have to be very, very smart with the money we get for Rice, because there's a lot of positions. We can focus on 6 or an 8. We need fullbacks. We need, wingers. We need a whole range. We need centre backs. We're going to need so many positions in the summer. So it's going to be difficult for Downs to come in and be the replacement that people maybe think he could be. So I think we just need to see a bit more of him. There's still 3 or 4 months of football left. He could, like you mentioned earlier, stuff. He could make a real impression in the Premier League. And if we go to a back 4 again and Souček gets dropped, we might see a midfield 3 of Rice, Downs, Paqueta. And you might, play Downs as more of the base anchor and give Rice a bit more freedom that some fans again want to see. And he might perform really, really well. So I guess it depends on a few factors, but I'd say overall, he's probably not the Rice replacement. And I guess you guys agree with that statement.
Very much.
Yeah. And I think, my kind of key idea is that if he is the answer to this question, why is Souček still getting in the team above him? Because, as we've heard so often, Rice is waiting to be unleashed. So why aren't we putting that 6 in there to do that and balancing it out?
Yeah, and that's the fair point. If someone's good enough to be a Rice replacement, they're good enough to keep Souček out of the team as it is right now. I know what people will say, but it's a completely valid argument. If someone is good enough to replace Declan Rice, they should be good enough to take the place of Thomas Souček, whether that be in a double pivot or whether that be as part of a 3, to then obviously unleash both Paqueta and Rice. He's currently deemed not good enough to be in over Souček. People may say that is because he has other duties, but surely Declan Rice is the player that everyone says he is. Declan Rice can do those duties expected of Souček, and then Downs can do the duties of Rice. If that's not being shown, then quite frankly, I think that says everything we need to know about, is he truly the replacement or not?
Well, let us know in the comments if you think any different. Do you think Downs could be that replacement? If not, who do you think you want to see as, the Rice replacement in the summer? If you could, maybe have a budget of 50, 60 million, who would you like to come in that position? But yeah, I guess we'll see a bit more on Flynn Downs in the next few months. Hopefully he'll get a bit more of a chance to prove himself. We've got a lot of games still to play. We've got the FA Cup, Conference League, Premier League. So he's bound to get a few more games, and hopefully we'll be able to assess it a bit better in a few months. But lads, until the next one.
Come on, you guys.